Hello and welcome to my personal corner on the internet, Nader's Nook. I'm Nader, and in today's video we're going to be talking about my digital art process and just go in depth and explore my art process. I've actually never shared any of my digital process, but in past videos I talk about my goals for 2025 and how I want to challenge myself to make more art, specifically character design. I'm going to talk and show how I approach a fully illustrated piece based on original characters that I made. The video is yet to come, it's on the horizon, but I'm very excited to share it with everybody. So before we do anything digital, we actually have to start in my sketchbook. Most of my projects and ideas start off in my sketchbook. This is a place to dump ideas, figure out compositions, a place to explore, do studies, doodle, play, and color and more. This is my sketchbook right here. Trusty, reliable. I feel like having and maintaining a sketchbook habit is so helpful when exploring ideas. I find that a lot of the time my finished pieces are directly sourced from past doodles and drawings. My sketchbook is basically a place where I can dump all my ideas and use it as a launch pad / jumping off point. This is a place to experiment and have fun. I highly recommend developing a sketchbook habit if you don't already have one. If I didn't use a sketchbook, then most of my ideas would be like lost to the void of my brain. So typically whenever I get into a sketchbook session, I either rewatch a show that I know by heart. You can't get distracted if you already know what's going on. Put on my headphones and listen to some music, or lastly, put on YouTube commentary video. The videos I consume versus like what I put out on this channel is drastically different to like what I post. So just have fun in your sketchbook and draw away. Okay, so for this digital illustration I'm working on, this is an idea that I had based on some Sonas turned into original characters. I'm gonna be saying OCs for short, so just so everybody knows, that I made a while back. A little backstory on these two characters. So these are my two mice characters, respectively called Will and Nader, and they are two young adult mice merchants that leave their small village to travel and explore their fantasy-esque world. As they visit and see new places, they happen to stumble across quests that the locals of the area need help to get done. As each quest is fulfilled, they are paid and given unique materials to then use to make artisan goods and items. I'm currently working on a video to introduce them and their 3-part story. That will probably be the next video I put out, so stay on the lookout for that one. So the idea started off as a goal for 2025. I wanted to challenge myself to designing around character design. I felt like that was an area that I personally wanted to develop due to feeling like it's not very a strong suit of mine. I also wanted to explore world building and the different situations that mice Will and Nader get into as they travel from place to place. So the idea for this drawing project was to make a fully illustrated piece. Actually, this is one of 2 illustration ideas that I had. So first of all, I wanted to make a piece that adds more depth to their world. So like I wanted to actually give them a solid place, like an environment to actually interact with. And second, I wanted to put them in a fighting situation in the woods because it's a very likely circumstance that they will get into, right? Especially traveling at night. And third, overall cool lighting, a warm spot in a vast cool toned forest or woods. So after getting inspired and drawing these characters in my sketchbook, we can now move on to gathering references. This step is sort of like a mood board, like a vision board, kind of like basically it's just like a collage of references, inspiration, poses, and like just writing down ideas for the project. Whatever your vision for this project is, you can all put it in one place and reference back to it whenever you need it. So typically for this part, I start off with a Pinterest board and then I narrow it down and use VizRev on my iPad or use Milanote on my laptop. For VizRev, I could be wrong, but I had to pay for that app. I don't know how much it was. I literally don't remember. Milanote is free, so that's also a good one. I love using references. It's so helpful when drawing, especially when the idea is purely from imagination in my brain. I know that there are some people that think using a reference is like quote unquote cheating. Personally, I don't know anyone that's like that, and it's not. And this is a hill I will die on. So yeah, So using references is so important. Generally, by not using references in your art, it can make your drawings really stiff and have an unnatural look to them. When you incorporate using references, it can help you by improving accuracy, overcoming your limited imagination, and can expand your visual library to understand said object or form that you're drawing. Not everyone has a deep knowledge of like how to draw everything and anything. References can help you understand the object better and make it more believable when you're drawing it and putting it in an illustration. On to planning, compositions, and thumbnailing. The way I thumbnail is low-key a little strange, but it works for me. I use Procreate. I just play around with the canvas sizes until I see how the composition changes depending on that. I do still thumbnail in my sketchbook, but it's more for like digital pieces. I will just like copy and paste the sketches and just like arrange and rearrange them until I'm happy with it. My process when it comes to the stage, generally I have an idea. So for this, it was a fight scene. I wanted to have evil rats in the foreground and my characters would be sort of cornered as they were traveling through the woods at night. I also wanted to convey visually that my mice duo are the main characters and therefore they have a warm lighting washed on them versus their surroundings and the enemy, which is in a cool blue / purple toned dark color. Having that contrast was really important to me because it causes them to be the main focal point by immediately drawing your eye to them first. Then as you look away, your eyes circle around to the cool tone, like quote unquote like frame of the rats in the woods. This is also great visually, especially because since they are new and not familiar to people, and so like the image tells a story, and it reminds me of that quote, like a picture is worth 1,000 words. The image does all the work for me. Like I don't have to explain like what's going on here. Once thumbnailing and composition is all done, we can now move on to figure out our values. For this part, happy to say that I have progressed enough in my digital art journey that I can jump in straight with color, but for this video, and the sake of my sanity, we are going to figure out the values. So we already know the time of day of this illustration is actually night, so there's no sun. The only light source is the lantern in the drawing and the moon. The moon lighting is not that important, but it'll just be like a soft light for the background. After all that preparation, we now can work on the final sketch. This stage of my progress is where I kind of clean up my sketch to make it more readable to the viewer, as well as this is an important step because your sketch is the base for the whole drawing. I recommend spending a little bit more time on this part. A strong final sketch can set you up for applying color and rendering and just finishing details all the way. It just makes for like a better flow. The final sketch stage is also a fun stage because you get to be creative by using different brushes. Since the rats in this illustration are the enemy, I wanted to portray them that visually along with the cool tones. I ended up using one of the default brushes on Procreate called Inca, and it had like a scratchy kind of like rough look to it. I ended up modifying it. I really don't like the pressure sensitivity. And for the mice duo, I used a brush from the Comics Max Pack that I bought a while ago. It's called Mechanical Pencil, and again, I took off the pressure sensitivity setting. Adding the visual difference by using the brushes also adds to the digital painting and further portraying the rats. With the finished line art done, we can now apply flat colors. In this part, I'm putting my main colors down. My mice duo. So Will is a brown mouse, so brown will be the base. And Nader is a blonde mouse, so they will have like a blonde base. After putting down the flat colors, we can now move on to what I call the smudge stage. This stage is actually where I start rendering, even though it's the flat color stage. It's my drawing process and I can do whatever I want. So this is the part where I start putting down slightly darker colors on top of the main colors. This is me planning out where the shadows are gonna go and just adding more dimension and more depth. The lasso tool will also be your best friend. Also, Alpha Lock. So once we're done with all the flat colors and the smudge stays, we can now move on to rendering on top of all of those layers. This stage is where I start using different filters and effects. I tend to use the multiply layer and the screen effect to really help me get the darker and lighter values that I'm looking for. This is also where I start bringing back different brushes. I love the smudge tool and using a texture brush to add shading and more variety to the painting. Unexpected, but the background was actually the most difficult part for me because there was a lot going on and I wanted the focus to remain on the rats and the mice, right? So I didn't want the background to be too overpowering. The background was the most difficult part, which I didn't think it would be. We are now at the final stage of the drawing process. In this last step, I'm adding final details to the drawing. I think this is my least favorite step just because there's not much to do in this stage of the drawing, but the good thing is the drawing is done. Finally, after all that preparation, we have a final finished illustration for my duo mice merchant characters. Overall, I am very happy with the outcome of this illustration and the progress I've gained from making this piece. Originally, when I first picked up digital art, I was so stiff and it definitely was a learning curve to overcome. I said this earlier on in the video, but I'm happy to be in a place where I'm comfortable making digital art every day. Though, through this digital process, I found that a new obstacle that I have to overcome is trying to embrace my creativity. I am someone that has more of an instinctual, technical sense when it comes to art. Put me in a figure drawing class, I will excel. But if it's like creating an original character and a narrative in my art, it's like that's where I start to struggle. But that's okay because challenging myself to make the art that I struggle with really is the only way that I'm going to improve. If you made it to the end of this video, just want to say big thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe. We're going to see these characters again in the next video, so I hope you like them because they're going to be reoccurring on here. All right, bye!